Ethan Shaw, the school bully, and Julian Vance, the campus idol, made a bet who could conquer me, the poor scholarship student, first. They feigned deep affection, launching a grand pursuit. Just as I completely fell for it, giving my first kiss and my heart, they cruelly revealed the truth. The whole school knew about this conquest livestream, except you. A country bumpkin like you, did you really think a rich kid would fall for you? Like a drowned rat, I was mocked and ostracized by the entire school. In a state of mental collapse, I accidentally fell into the water and died. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day the conquest livestream began. One after school, I was cornered on the stairwell landing. Ethan Shaw leaned down, eyeing me playfully. Top scholarship student. Heard you topped the grade again in the monthly exams. Ethan was the sole heir to the powerful Shaw family of the capital, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. As the largest sponsors of Inu's academy, the Shaw family was thriving in the business world, with ties to influential political figures going back 2 generations. In my past life, Ethan had demanded I help him cheat on the monthly exams. I refused. Later, he scored in the double digits overall and got chewed out by old Master Shaw. Ethan blamed me for everything. He usually settled scores with boys he disliked with his fists. But hitting a girl? Ethan considered that beneath him. So, Ethan came up with a prank. He made a bet with his best friend, Julian Vance, on who could win over the poor scholarship student first. Me. Julian secured access to the school's surveillance system and live-streamed the entire conquest on the campus forum. To add spice, Ethan even started a school-wide betting pool, wagering on when I would give one of them my first kiss. Ultimately, all the donations from the livestream would go to the person who guessed the time most accurately. The rebellious school bully, Ethan Shaw, the cool and refined campus idol, Julian Vance, and a massive prize pool the livestream set Inu's academy ablaze. I was just a naive high school student after all. How could I possibly resist such grand, romantic overtures from 2 handsome, wealthy young men? After I accepted Julian's confession, Ethan, having lost the bet, was furious. He cruelly revealed the truth to me. Didn't see that coming, did you? It was a dating conquest game live-streamed the whole time, by the way. Top scholarship student. More like a conceited fool, right? You didn't actually think we'd fall for some hick from the sticks like you, did you? From then on, I became the school's biggest joke. In their eyes, my initial coldness and rejection were seen as aloofness, my later softening attitude as putting on airs, and my eventual budding affection as degrading myself and foolishly hoping. Everyone laughed at my pathetic stupidity. My grades plummeted, dropping me out of the top 50 in the grade by the final exams. My scholarship was revoked, burdening my family with debt. While trying to earn money for my tuition, my parents died in a car accident. Crushed by blow after blow, I slipped and fell into the swimming pool in a daze, drowning silently in the winter of my junior year. Afterward, the school attributed my death to academic pressure, offered a token apology, and quietly swept it under the rug. Ethan, deeply affected, was sent abroad. Later, he lived a life of drunken debauchery, constantly changing girlfriends. Word was, though, that every girlfriend he had bore a striking resemblance to me. Julian, on the other hand, inherited his company after coming of age and became a renowned philanthropist for his numerous donations to impoverished regions. He married a female entrepreneur who also came from a rural background. At the wedding, he gazed tenderly at his bride, saying she reminded him of the feeling of first love he'd had with his childhood sweetheart. 2. Hey, Ivy, didn't you hear me? Ethan waved a hand in front of my face. He had wild, untamed features, and his intense gaze gave the impression of being stared down by a predator. I knew the conquest livestream had already begun. The comments on the campus forum were flying. What rotten luck did the top student stumble into, getting pursued by both the bully and the idol? I bet a week's allowance the campus idol wins this hunt easily. Who could resist the cool scholar? Then I'm betting on young Master Shaw. This girl prefers the bad boy type. Hee hee. Ethan took a deep breath, repeating patiently, I said I'm here to offer you a chance to make some money. Heard your family's from the countryside, you must be short on cash, right? Come tutor me at my place. $1,000 per session, how about it? I glanced discreetly at the camera in the corner of the stairwell, then lowered my head and murmured, Ethan, thank you for the offer. But I already have plans this weekend. I walked out of the school gates. Passing a full-length mirror, I paused, looking at my reflection, thin and reserved, pale skin, my face almost bland due to its lack of expression. My best feature was my eyes, hidden behind black-framed glasses. Of course, I could take off the glasses now, change some opinions. But initiating the change myself wouldn't be nearly as impactful as letting them discover it on their own, would it? I knew that even if I didn't fall into their trap this time, Ethan and Julian would devise new pranks to toy with me. With my current resources, I couldn't possibly stand against these two untouchable elites who could seemingly do anything. But at least in this life, I had figured out their game. It's just acting, right? Fine, I can play that game too. I lowered my eyes and headed towards the flower shop where I usually worked part-time. Most students at NU's academy came from wealthy or influential families. To maintain its reputation, the school admitted several top-performing scholarship students each year. Besides being academically gifted, top scholarship students had another trait in common: poverty. Otherwise, why endure attending a prestigious school where they clearly didn't fit in just for the scholarship? As long as I stayed in the top 10 of my grade, my tuition was waived, and I received a $5,000 monthly scholarship. Since enrolling, I hadn't ranked anywhere but first. So, I usually sent the scholarship money home and worked part-time for living expenses. The flower shop. Before I even entered, I heard Mrs. Evans's excited voice. Ivy, we got a huge order today. Her phone screen displayed a delivery order. $99.99 premium Ecuadorian roses. The client specifically requested top-quality flowers sourced from Ecuador. Mrs. Evans was beaming. This order could make us 5 figures in my past life. Ethan, trying to force me to agree to tutor him, had easily sabotaged my part-time job at the flower shop. He lavishly spent a fortune ordering a massive amount of premium Ecuadorian roses. After Mrs. Evans and I worked through the night, scouring the entire city to gather enough flowers, we were met with Ethan's dismissive remark. Lost interest, don't want them anymore. The Shaw family's influence was immense. Mrs. Evans had no recourse and ended up bearing the huge loss from the unpaid balance. She had opened the shop here primarily to escape her abusive husband. After that incident, she closed the shop and reluctantly returned to her hometown with him. Noticing my subdued mood, Mrs. Evans looked puzzled. Ivy, what's wrong? I shook my head. Mrs. Evans, something's off about this order. Please don't prepare the flowers just yet. Although hesitant, Mrs. Evans agreed to my insistence and decided against placing a large wholesale order for now, promising to delay and see how things unfolded. For the next week, I stopped studying in the library and instead hid in my dorm as soon as classes ended, making it impossible for Ethan to even catch sight of me. With the conquest stalling right at the beginning, Ethan grew visibly agitated. As I expected, he couldn't stand it for more than a week. On Saturday, Mrs. Evans was taking a nap in the storage room, leaving me alone to mind the shop. I had just finished a practice test paper when I looked up and saw a familiar tall figure flash past the shop window. I reacted instantly. The time had come. Simultaneously, Mrs. Evans's phone, left on the counter, began to vibrate. Without hesitation, I answered the call. Less than 10 minutes later, a bald man with a beer belly stormed into the flower shop. Bang, he kicked the door open, demanding gruffly, "Where's that bitch, Emily Evans?" Mrs. Evans, awakened by the noise, emerged drowsily from the storage room. Upon seeing the man, her face instantly filled with terror. "You, what are you doing here?" The bald man snorted and lunged forward to grab Mrs. Evans's hair. I quickly stepped in front of her, loudly questioning, "Who are you? What do you think you're doing?" The bald man sneered. "Who am I? I'm her man, it's my right to discipline my own woman. If you don't get out of the way, I'll hit you too. I trembled slightly with fear but still managed to say loudly, my voice shaky. Domestic abuse is illegal. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. The bald man grinned menacingly, swung his arm, and shoved me to the ground. I stumbled backward, falling painfully near the shop entrance. My glasses flew off. My knee hit the threshold, making me cry out in pain as I curled up. I lowered my lashes, but a faint smile touched my lips unnoticed. I couldn't be mistaken. The figure outside the shop earlier was none other than Ethan. I knew Ethan's Livestream camera was clipped to his collar. It was high-end gear, top of the line in both video and audio quality. With all the commotion just now, Ethan, and everyone watching the livestream, must have seen me and Mrs. Evans being bullied. I knew Ethan too well. He wasn't just a reckless jerk, he was also a spirited teenager. Whether for the sake of the conquest or driven by his impulsive, volatile nature, he would definitely step in. This damsel in distress scene had played out this far. Next up, the male lead's entrance. For sure enough, the next second, I saw a pair of long legs step over the threshold into the flower shop. Before anyone could react, Ethan was already grappling with the bald man. The live comments on the forum went wild. AAAHHHH, so hot, totally swooning. Hero saving the damsel is the ultimate win. Such a passionate young man. Sob, 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 see. Fate's totally on young Master Shaw's side. I'm gonna go bet on him right now, wow. The live prize pool just hit 1.74 million and it's still climbing. The final winner is gonna be loaded. Although Ethan knew karate, the bald man was tall and stout, nearly twice his bulk. Initially, Ethan gained the upper hand using fighting techniques. But soon, the bald man used his sheer weight advantage, found an opening, and pinned Ethan underneath him. Amidst the wreckage of the flower shop, the bloodshot bald man pressed down on Ethan, choking him tightly. He spat at Ethan, cursing, "That'll teach you to mess with me, you're her lover, aren't you, you punk?" Ethan's face turned crimson as he struggled fiercely. Just a second before he completely lost consciousness, I grabbed a glass vase and smashed it hard against the back of the bald man's head. Thud, the bald man's body froze for a moment, then collapsed heavily. Ethan gasped for air a few times, then gathered his strength and kicked the large, flabby body away. He sat up, his face dark, then his eyes widened abruptly as he took in the scene before him. Reflected in Ethan's amber eyes was my silhouette against the light, a trembling girl holding a vase, tears streaming down her face. "You!" He had barely spoken when the vase slipped from my grasp, rolling onto the floor with a clatter. My injured legs could no longer support me, and I crumpled forward. Ethan instinctively reached out and caught me. As I fell into his arms, I heard the frantic, drum-like pounding of his heart against his chest. Misattribution of arousal. When people experience physiological arousal from a thrilling situation, they might mistakenly attribute that feeling to romantic attraction. That entire sequence was a carefully designed scenario I had crafted for Ethan. The impulsive young hero trying to save the day, only to be unexpectedly saved by the girl at the last moment. Every expression, every movement, I had rehearsed it in my mind 10,000 times. Listening to his racing heart, I trembled all over with excitement. Ethan awkwardly patted my shoulder, comforting me with uncharacteristic gentleness. "Don't be scared, don't be scared. Stop crying, it's okay now." 5. The bald man, Mrs. Evans's husband, was arrested for assault. Although sentencing for domestic violence is often light, the victim this time was Ethan Shaw. Knowing Ethan's vindictive nature, the bald man probably wouldn't be getting out anytime soon. Mrs. Evans thanked Ethan profusely, praising him repeatedly as a model young citizen. As the school bully, Ethan was used to causing trouble, not being praised for bravery. He touched the scrape on his nose, but a suspicious blush crept up his cheeks. "It's nothing. I just came by to see Ivy, didn't expect to run into something like this. No need to thank me, it was nothing, really." To show my gratitude to Ethan, I offered to tutor him on weekends going forward. He was clearly pleased, but still put on an arrogant front. Next Saturday, 3 p.m. at my private villa. And ditch those broken glasses you were wearing. They're hideous. Weekend, Ethan's private villa study. I was tutoring him in math. In my previous life, I discovered the truth about the flower shop closure right after agreeing to tutor Ethan. We had a huge fight, and the tutoring session ended disastrously. This life, I plan to take tutoring Ethan seriously. A few math problems later, Ethan's eyes glazed over. Seeing him chewing his pen, staring blankly at the first fill-in-the-blank question, I sighed silently. The live comments were full of gloating. The bully must regret asking for tutoring now, serves him right, ha ha ha. Can't watch, he tried flirting with the top student several times, but she ignored him completely, just focused on teaching. Is it just me, or is Ivy actually a really good teacher? She explains things clearly. Even a math failure like me understood. Meanwhile, I noticed the old Shaw family butler holding a phone, filming through the crack in the door. Though the butler tried his best to keep quiet, his excitement was palpable. Sir, madam, thank heavens, the young master is actually studying math, I internally facepalmed. Seeing Ethan already drifting off, about to slip into blissful slumber for the third time, I said resignedly, let's call it a day here. Ethan reflexively agreed, oh, right. So that's how it works, I get it. Wait, class is over already? I nodded. Your foundation is too weak. It's better to proceed step by step. Ethan nodded with immense relief, the look of someone who had just survived an ordeal written all over his face. Before leaving, I took a single premium Ecuadorian rose from my bag. Seeing the rose offered to him, Ethan froze. You, giving a flower to me? I nodded without hesitation. Yes. A customer canceled an order at the shop, paid a hefty cancellation fee. Mrs. Evans gave me a bonus, so I bought you a flower with it. Thank you for helping us last time. Seeing Ethan's complicated expression, I raised an eyebrow. If you don't want it, never mind. Ethan immediately snatched the flower from my hand. Who said I didn't want it? 6, leaving the villa, the sun was already setting. In the fading light, a figure was riding a horse in the paddock outside the villa. Seeing me emerge, Julian Vance pulled on the reins and rode towards me. He was strikingly handsome, his trim white riding attire accentuating his tall, straight posture. The Vance family wasn't as prominent as the Shaws, they were more like new money from the tech industry. But Julian was gentle, courteous, and tactful, highly regarded by the entire school community. In my previous life, I had been deceived by his facade and accepted his confession. When Ethan told me it was just a conquest game, I refused to believe it until Julian admitted it himself. Facing my questioning, Julian had still smiled gently, but his words were incredibly hurtful. Ivy, I just realized you actually look a lot like my childhood sweetheart. But she's pure and sweet, not cheap like you. So what if you're always top of the grade? You're just easy prey, not our type. If Ethan's cruelty was naive, Julian's was pure malice. Now, under the setting sun, Julian looked down, gazing at me gently. Thank you for coming to tutor Ethan. You'll have to bear with him from now on. I tilted my head up, meeting his beautiful phoenix eyes directly. Are you saying Ethan has a bad temper, is difficult to get along with, so I need to bear with him? Julian paused, then chuckled. That's not what I meant. Just then, the large chestnut horse suddenly snorted and lowered its head, nuzzling my hand affectionately. Julian looked surprised. Andrew is a Hanoverian warmblood, he has quite a temper. I've never seen him get this close to a stranger before, he really likes you. I scoffed inwardly. Hanoverians are known for being calm and docile, how could they possibly have bad tempers? Of course, I understood the meaning behind this lie. Someone straightforward like Ethan, who charged ahead relentlessly, could easily put people on guard. Julian, however, was a clever hunter. In the past life, he chose to lower my defenses with seemingly casual coincidences, then gradually deepened my affection for him through repeated exposure and contact, ultimately leading me to offer my first kiss willingly. Seeing my lack of reaction, Julian leaned down slightly, extending his hand towards me with impeccable manners. Miss Ashton, would you care to join me for a ride? The beautiful sunset, the handsome young man, the perfectly crafted atmosphere Julian was certain I wouldn't refuse. But he miscalculated. In the past life, Julian pulled me onto the horse, using the misattribution of arousal from riding to make me feel something for him, thus beginning his conquest. Now I glanced coolly at the hand offered to me and suddenly asked, "What's that?" Thrown off rhythm repeatedly, a flicker of impatience crossed Julian's eyes. He retracted his hand and, following my gaze, unfastened a black iris decorative lapel pin, holding it out to me. I stared at the black pin. I knew Julian's Livestream camera was hidden inside it. He wasn't just resourceful and skilled, he had nerves of steel daring to hand it directly to me. The live comments shivered collectively. Why do I feel like she's looking at me through the camera? Scared. JPG no way, Vance Corp's camera tech is cutting edge, and the stream forum is blocked for her anyway. This is thrilling, sending a premium gift seeing me stare at the iris pin, Julian said casually. Do you like it? If you do, I can give it to you. I averted my gaze and laughed abruptly. No, thank you. I don't like the meaning behind the black iris. 7 Julian insisted on driving me back to school. Truthfully, the villa wasn't far from the school, just a 10-minute drive. The trouble was, there was no direct bus route from here to the school. Looking at Julian in his Lamborghini Revuelto sports car, I said with some hesitation, "You're not even old enough to drive." Julian smiled, flashing a driver's license. "Don't worry, I got it abroad. So, Miss Ashton, may I have the honor of giving you a ride?" On the way back, I sat silently in the back seat, reviewing vocabulary. Meanwhile, the livestream comments were buzzing. "Ah, the cool campus idol is just too smooth, the poor student is kinda rude though. Maybe she's playing hard to get, pretending to be aloof. Isn't that how rom-coms always go? Wait, am I the only one noticing the insane engine sound of this supercar?" A top-tier sports car, moving like lightning. Soon, the car pulled up at the school gate. I tried to open the door to get out, but found it locked. I frowned at Julian in the driver's seat, only to hear him ask jokingly, "Miss Ashton, how do you plan to pay the fare?" I pulled out 2 crumpled $100 bills from my bag and handed them to Julian with a pained expression. "Keep the change." Julian's eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. "A very sincere offer, but unfortunately, I'm not short on cash." We stared at each other in silence for a few seconds. Suddenly, I tilted my head slightly, feigning a dazed look. Have we met somewhere before? Julian, I just realized you actually look a lot like my childhood friend. The live comments erupted in boos. Such a cliché pickup line. Does she think that'll make the campus idol see her differently? Definitely watched too many dramas. Has anyone noticed the campus idol hasn't said anything for a while? Julian looked at me with a hint of uncertainty. I added with another smile, "But he's pure and sweet. He wouldn't lock a girl in his car like you." 8 after getting out of the car. I stood beside it, smiling, and tucked the $200 through the open window. Watching the roaring steel beast speed away in apparent fury, the smile slowly faded from my face. In my past life, Julian had said at his wedding that his new bride, whose smile resembled mine, reminded him of his childhood sweetheart, his first love. Our family backgrounds were worlds apart. It was impossible for Julian and me to have grown up together as childhood friends. So there was only one possibility: Julian had a childhood sweetheart, and I happened to bear a resemblance to her. Since I knew this beforehand, it made sense to use it to my advantage. Therefore, I claimed the identity of his sweetheart. Julian was sensitive and prone to suspicion. With people like him, you only needed to toss out a vague question, and they would invest time and effort pursuing the answer, and in the process, inevitably become familiar with me, understand me. Repeated exposure increases liking. Familiarity breeds fondness, as they say. Speaking of which, I had to thank the Julian from my past life for teaching me so many techniques. The following months passed peacefully. My days followed a simple routine: classroom, library, cafeteria. On weekends, I first worked part-time at the flower shop, then went to tutor Ethan. Each time I went to see Ethan, I brought a single premium Ecuadorian rose. Ethan went from being awkward about it to gradually getting used to it. I didn't slack off on tutoring just because of our past. Instead, I patiently and thoroughly reviewed the material with him. In my previous life, refusing to tutor Ethan led to accusations. Country folk are just stubborn, not sincere at all. Some people even falsely claimed my previous good grades were achieved through cheating after my scores dropped due to depression. This time, I wouldn't leave any room for such accusations. The weather gradually turned colder, and the days grew shorter as winter approached. The first semester of junior year was nearing its end, and final exams were just around the corner. Weekend, private villa, Ethan sat properly at the desk, looking unusually nervous. "Well," I put down the red pen I used to grade his test. "You scored 63 on this math test. That's progress." I passed. The butler, who had been waiting nearby, cheered and pulled the string on a small party popper he'd somehow acquired. Pop amidst a shower of confetti and streamers, Ethan yanked me out of my chair and spun me around in his arms. Startled, I slightly regretted not mentioning earlier that the test was out of 150. Seeing this, the butler quietly slipped out, thoughtfully closing the door behind him. I felt dizzy from being spun around and gritted my teeth, tapping Ethan's head. "Put me down." "One more spin, and you don't get today's flower." Hearing this, Ethan immediately put me down and started acting cute. "My bad, shouldn't have teased you. Won't happen again. Where's my flower? Reward me quickly." I shot him a glare and handed him the rose. Ethan took the flower, grinning mischievously. "Just kidding, I'll totally do it again." I rolled my eyes. Idiot. 9 with finals approaching, I became increasingly busy. The library. I was studying ahead for the next semester's courses when someone tapped my shoulder. Looking up, I saw a round-faced girl with short hair. She blushed as she handed me a pink envelope. "Ivy," she said, "could you help me give this letter to Julian Vance?" I frowned and didn't take it. This girl was Laura York, another scholarship student like me. In my past life, she was one of the few students who hadn't participated in the Conquest livestream at all. After my death, she learned the truth and even wrote a letter reporting the incident. Unfortunately, the letter was intercepted by the Vance family as soon as it was sent, making no impact whatsoever. Seeing my silence, Laura quickly explained, "Julian drives you back every weekend after tutoring, so I thought I'd ask you for this favor." I refused flatly. "Sorry, I can't help you." Laura paused, looking confused. "Why not, do you? Do you like Julian too?" Her words caused an instant hush around us. Some bolder students started glancing sneakily in my direction. I glanced at the several cameras on the ceiling not far away, then shook my head at Laura. "It's just not possible." Laura was simple and kind-hearted. She definitely wouldn't survive Julian's scheming. I didn't want her to repeat my fate, but the ubiquitous livestream cameras prevented me from telling her the truth. I could only hope she'd back down. Laura bit her lip, stomped her foot, and forcibly pushed the pink envelope into my hand. "If you don't like Julian, just help me out." "Ivy, thank you so much." Watching her retreating figure, I expressionlessly tightened my grip on the love letter in my hand. After the love letter incident, Ethan suddenly grew cold towards me. Usually, he'd send me hundreds of messages a day, math problems, memes, even random, meaningless thoughts. But now, Ethan had been silent for a whole week. Burdened with my own studies, I welcomed the peace and quiet and certainly didn't think of reaching out to him. If I could have seen the live comments, I would have realized people were already lighting candles for me. "Feels like the Stern CP is heading for a breakup. Pity I just donated 9 rockets. The bully really cares about that love letter." Stop making excuses. Giving flowers to the young master while getting jealous and throwing away a letter meant for the idol. Isn't that too timing? Such a shame, I was actually starting to ship them. Saturday afternoon. I arrived at Ethan's villa right on time. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered for a long time. I took out my phone to message Ethan, only to see the red exclamation mark indicating I'd been blocked. Frowning, I rang the doorbell again. 10 minutes passed, still no answer. While I wasn't the most perceptive person, I understood the message. I wasn't welcome. I turned to leave, but suddenly heard the click of the door unlocking behind me. "Get in!" A cold voice. I entered the villa. Ethan was lounging on the living room sofa, listlessly fiddling with a game controller. I was left standing awkwardly, unsure what to do. After finishing a game round, Ethan finally condescended to look up at me. "So you finally decided to show up. I thought you were never going to explain yourself." I was bewildered. "Explain what? I'm here to tutor you." "Tutor me?" Ethan scoffed. "We haven't spoken in ages. I figured the great scholar had forgotten about our tutoring sessions." He casually tossed the controller aside, got up, grabbed my wrist, and half dragged me towards the second-floor study. Ethan shoved me into the study and slammed the door shut with a bang. I stumbled a few steps, and before I could speak, Ethan swept everything off the desk with one arm. Amidst the chaos, Ethan pushed me, forcing me to sit on the desk. I sat there awkwardly, anger flaring up, but Ethan showed no sign of stopping. He braced his arms on the desk on either side of me, leaning in close. I leaned back, feeling trapped and extremely irritated. "Ethan, what the hell are you?" But the next second, Ethan cupped my chin and kissed me fiercely. Startled, I instinctively slapped him across the face. Slap, the crisp sound echoed in the sudden silence of the study. Ethan slowly turned his face back, his eyes fierce and cold. He questioned me word by word. "Ivy, tell me, why did you throw away that love letter meant for Julian?" I took a deep breath. "Ethan, we have a purely professional relationship. I tutor you, and you pay for my time and knowledge. Besides math problems, I have no obligation to explain anything else to you." Ethan stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly burst out laughing mockingly. "Professional relationship? You bring me a premium Ecuadorian rose every time you come here. Is that a professional relationship?" I looked him straight in the eye. "As you wish, I didn't bring you a flower this time." Ethan narrowed his eyes dangerously. "What?" I didn't explain, just repeated, "This time, I didn't bring you a flower. The flowers were just a reward. Since you don't want them, there isn't one this time, and there won't be any in the future." The implication was clear. There was no need for me to tutor him anymore either. Ethan wouldn't give up, staring intently at me, searching for any hint of pique on my face. Finding my expression utterly calm, his gaze slowly darkened. "So, in the end, it was always just about the money for you. Can money really buy everything from you? That's great, I have plenty of money. You scholarship students, maybe you're worth less than the prize horses meticulously raised on my family's estate." Slap this time, I slapped him with all my strength. Ethan had been pampered by his family his whole life and reigned as the young master at school. When had he ever been slapped twice unilaterally like this? He lowered his head, veins bulging on his arms, clearly on the verge of exploding with rage. 11 just as I was preparing to kick him where it counts. 2 knocks sounded at the study door, knock, knock, and it opened from the outside. The butler, face beaded with cold sweat, entered carrying a platter of cut fruit, his voice trembling. "Young master, Miss Ashton, perhaps have some fruit." I shoved Ethan away, jumped off the desk, picked up my bag from the floor, and walked out. As I left the study, Ethan's low, menacing threat followed me. "Ivy Ashton, if you walk out that door today, don't regret it later." My steps faltered for only a second before I strode away decisively. Walking down the stairs, I heard the loud crash of furniture being overturned from the second floor. Meanwhile, the live comments scrolled faster than light. Was that some crazy possessive CEO versus innocent flower plot just now? So cheesy but kinda addictive scared me. Ivy was really brave just now. Those slaps were loud. "No, I bet they would kiss today. My $1 million prize money damn. No free class to watch today." I even set an alarm. Outside the villa, Julian Vance was leaning against the doorframe, watching me with smiling eyes. "What's wrong?" Fought with Ethan. "I told you before, you need to bear with him." His collar was empty, he wasn't wearing the black iris pin with the hidden camera. I intended to ignore his gloating, but Julian reached out to block my path. He asked abruptly, "Don't you have a pure and sweet childhood friend? Why bother getting involved with others? Fickle girls tend to get punished, you know. At that moment, I finally noticed the unusual tone in his voice, and a suspicion suddenly surfaced. I stared at him. Laura's love letter, that was your doing? Correct, Julian clapped lightly, his eyes sparkling with delight. He looked thrilled, as if playing the most interesting game in the world. I knew that girl liked me. I had someone hint to her that she could give me the love letter through you. It was easy. After all, you're the scholarship student who gets along best with us, aren't you? I almost laughed out of anger. So, what was your goal? Just to make Ethan hate me. Julian leisurely toyed with the ring on his finger. I want you to tell me everything about you and your childhood friend. For example, did you come to Inu's academy because of him? He was forcing me to prove my identity. My expression remained unchanged. I'm not in the mood today, please bear with me. Julian chuckled again. All right, but I believe one day you'll come crying to me, begging to tell me the answer. 12 on the campus forum, Julian's livestream feed had been blacked out, so everyone flocked to Ethan's stream. Technology is great. Never thought I'd live to see young Master Shaw live-streaming himself trashing his house. Gonna say it. Don't get why so many people simp for the young master. My husky has more empathy. Good riddance anyway. A poor student like Ivy marrying into wealth would just suffer under a difficult mother-in-law. Don't spread rumors. The master and madam really like Miss Ashton. Everyone was shocked by the intensity of Ethan's rage, expressing pity or derision for me, the rejected consort. They speculated that the hunting livestream would soon end completely due to Ethan's newfound disgust for me. Meanwhile, I had just returned to my dorm. I forced myself to calm down, reopened my study notes, and compelled myself to continue studying. A new week began. Ethan and I continued our Cold War. It was my week to be the student monitor on duty, responsible for organizing the semester's swimming assessment. After the assessment ended, I was about to lock the swimming pool doors when I heard laughter from inside. Hesitating for a moment, I reopened the doors. Inside the natatorium, several students were gathered by the pool. They were boys and girls, all impeccably dressed, clearly wealthy. In the pool, the short-haired, round-faced girl trembled, repeatedly diving underwater as if searching for something. On the poolside, the lead girl laughed sweetly. Laura, hurry up and find it. This watch of mine is worth millions. If you can't find it, you'll have to pay for it. Since the swimming assessment was over, the heating system for the indoor pool had been turned off. In the icy water, Laura hugged herself, her eyes red. Sasha Hamilton, I'm sorry, I didn't. Sasha Hamilton cut her off with a sneer. Just find it like I told you. Weren't you trying so hard to get close to Julian? Since you like being a gold digger so much, Miss Hamilton will give you a chance. It was practically common knowledge that Sasha liked Julian. Her targeting Laura wasn't surprising. Laura had no choice but to plunge back into the freezing water, hoping finding the watch would make the group leave her alone. Watching this, my fists clenched. This academy was filled with spoiled young masters and misses you couldn't afford to offend. They could arbitrarily decide the futures of other students, even teachers. Perhaps I should just turn around and leave after all. Laura meant nothing to me. I could barely protect myself. Blocking that love letter for her was perhaps as much as I could do. But seeing Laura's face, blue with cold, I remembered the moments before my own death in my past life. Back then, my scholarship was canceled and my school card account was overdrawn. Penniless, I was truly helpless. No one would lend me money. I had to frequently work off campus, surviving on just 2 bread rolls a day. That day, after barely completing the swimming assessment, I received the call informing me of my parents' deaths. Hiding in the locker room, I cried uncontrollably for the first time. Sobbing, I told myself to hold on even if fate toyed with me, even if the arrows of suffering rained down enough to block the sun, I would keep fighting in the shadows. I wouldn't surrender. I had to survive. Leaving the pool, I vaguely saw a glinting coin near the edge. I turned back to pick it up but lost my footing and fell into the frigid winter pool. Although I was an excellent swimmer, I was starving, freezing, and utterly exhausted. In my final moments before drowning, I still desperately struggled, reaching towards the surface, craving a sliver of hope. Now, Laura was still diving repeatedly for the watch. Expressionless, I took out my phone and sent Julian my location. He replied quickly, "Come crawling to me already?" Ignoring him, I placed the phone on a nearby chair and called out loudly to the group by the pool. "If you need to retrieve something, you can ask the pool attendant to drain the water. There's no need to torture someone like this." 13 To drain the pool, the person in the water had to get out first. Just as Laura climbed out of the pool, Sasha Hamilton suddenly pointed at me. "Hold her." A few lackeys immediately approached, twisting my arms behind my back and shoving me in front of Sasha. Knowing I couldn't resist, and that my only option was to stall for time, I didn't struggle unnecessarily. Sasha grabbed a handful of my hair at the nape of my neck, forcing my head up. She studied me for a moment, then sneered. "Not that pretty, are you? A poor student who managed to piss off people you can't afford to offend. Where do you get the nerve to play the righteous hero for others?" Someone tried to smooth things over. "No need, Sasha darling, hitting her would just dirty your hands." Sasha readily agreed, so she turned to Laura, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Laura, come over here and slap her twice. Then we'll forget about the watch." Laura stared at her, shocked, mouth agape. What?" Hearing such a disgusting ploy, I narrowed my eyes in disbelief. Sasha only grew more excited. She upped the ante. "If you can make her cry, we'll never bother you again at school." Laura was pushed in front of me. She trembled like a leaf, even more violently than when she was in the icy water. Our eyes met. Then I heard her tearful voice. "Ivy. I'm sorry." A slap landed on my face. Sasha burst out laughing. "One more slap. Don't hold back, hit her hard." Another slap. My head snapped to the side, and my newly replaced glasses fell to the floor. Sasha turned my face back towards her, sounding disappointed. What a shame she didn't cry. She tilted her head at Laura with a smile. "One more chance. Push her into the pool, same reward." Laura looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. Sasha urged sharply, "What are you waiting for? Do you want to go back to diving for that watch?" And so, I watched Laura, tears streaming down her face, take a step forward, raise her hand, and shove me into the pool. 14 Sasha Hamilton, satisfied, let Laura leave the natatorium. The pool was 2 meters deep. I had to tread water constantly to keep my nose and mouth above the surface. In the bitingly cold water, I heard Sasha issue an order. "Since Laura left, you can find that watch instead." I ignored her, staring blankly at her. "Ooh," someone sneered, "still got attitude." They pulled up chairs and sat leisurely by the poolside. "You're not getting out until you find that watch." They chatted and laughed on the deck while my body temperature steadily dropped. If this continued, I would be the first one to break. I couldn't just wait passively. So, under everyone's gaze, I closed my eyes and slowly sank beneath the water. It was an abrupt move. Since it was closing time, only one light was on by the pool. I knew that in such dim lighting, the people on the deck couldn't accurately pinpoint objects underwater. In the frigid water, I heard the laughter on the deck cease abruptly, followed by Sasha's cold sneer. "Let's see how long she can hold her breath." 30 seconds passed. Sasha remained dismissive. What could happen? She got an A on her swimming test. Is she going to drown? 1 minute passed. Sasha stood up, shouting nervously by the pool edge. "Ivy Ashton, I order you to come out, do you hear me?" 1.5 minutes passed. The people on the deck were genuinely panicked now. Amidst the commotion, I heard someone whisper, "Forget everything else, the live stream is still running. If those two aren't done playing yet, won't we be?" Sasha shrieked hysterically. "This isn't my fault, I just wanted to teach her a lesson. You get down there and get her." Meanwhile, I lurked underwater, using the dim light as cover, slowly moving towards the edge. I peered through the distorted water, trying to identify the people on the deck, preparing to grab one or two to join me for a cold dip. Before I could choose, I suddenly heard a loud splash. A figure plunged violently into the water, churning up countless tiny bubbles. Before I could react, he swiftly swam towards me, wrapped an arm around my waist, and pulled me towards the surface. Splash the sound of breaking water. Strong arms supported me securely, half lifting, half pushing me onto the pool deck. Then, Ethan braced his arms and vaulted out of the water. As soon as he was out, he extended a long arm and pulled me back into his embrace. He reached out to check my breathing, his fingers trembling slightly. I pushed his hand away, coughing a few times. "I'm fine." Water droplets rolled down my face like cold tears. "You scared me to death." Ethan grasped the hand I used to push him, bringing it to his lips for a light touch. "Your fingers are freezing." Goosebumps prickled my skin, and I tried hard to pull my hand back. Before I could free my hand, I heard footsteps approaching. I looked up and saw, surprisingly, Julian. He was late. At the same time, Ethan swept his gaze over Sasha and her friends. Although soaking wet, Ethan radiated a sharp, commanding presence. Sasha and the others shrank under his stare, lowering their heads. Ethan's gaze finally settled on Julian. He spoke coldly, "Julian, control your dogs." 15 after Julian led the others away from the pool, Ethan lowered his head again. He rested his chin on the top of my head, his voice muffled. "If I don't reach out to you, will you really never reach out to me?" I pushed against Ethan's chest. "Go, I need to change." My winter uniform was thick, and being wet made it cold and heavy, but he refused to release me. Ethan's voice, nasal from emotion, sounded almost like pouting. "I had a history class today." I cursed idiot under my breath but was trapped in his arms, forced to listen to his ramblings. He said, "The teacher talked about the upheaval in Eastern Europe, the dissolution of the Soviet Union." I deadpanned. "So," he said, "the Cold War ended." I remained silent. His arms around me tightened slightly. "Ivy, the Cold War is over. Let's make up." After changing into dry clothes, I checked the time and walked out of the natatorium. Ethan and Julian were both waiting for me at the main entrance. Honestly, I hadn't expected Ethan to show up. I had just learned that Laura had immediately found Ethan and begged him to rescue me. Remembering Laura's drenched, retreating figure as she ran from the pool, I lowered my gaze, lost in thought for a moment. Laura could be coaxed into pushing me into the pool, but she could also desperately seek help for me after escaping. So, I didn't blame her. But if I could forgive Laura, should I also forgive Ethan and Julian? At that moment, Ethan saw me. He strode forward and wrapped his scarf around my neck. Julian, standing nearby, also asked gently, "Should we go to the nurse's office to get you checked out?" I looked up at them, and suddenly my eyes welled up, tears falling. Ethan was instantly flustered. What's this now?" I looked at them earnestly, sobbing softly. "Thank you. I didn't think you'd really come to save me. I know I'm just a student from the countryside, awkward, unfashionable, totally out of place with you. Actually, I've always been afraid you'd laugh at me, dislike me, look down on me. But why did you have to be so good to me?" Hearing this, Ethan froze, his expression momentarily blank. Then I stood on tiptoe and placed a shy, gentle kiss on his cheek. The live comments, after a moment of silence, exploded. They kissed, marking the date, specific time is month day, year 1923-03. After following this stream for half a semester, I actually don't dislike the top student that much anymore. She wasn't really too timing, right? Just worried the round-faced girl would get bullied over the letter. Ivy's actually a pretty good person. When she first enrolled freshman year, she brought local snacks for classmates. But everyone turned them down, so she never brought them again. Wonder how the bully and the idol feel now. Do they regret using Ivy for their bet? Seriously, though, doesn't anyone else think this Conquest livestream is really messed up? At this moment, the scales of public opinion finally tipped decisively in my favor. Ethan remained stunned for a long moment before pulling me into his arms, his face flushing red. He said awkwardly, "You're already a good person. No one would treat you badly. Why do you cry so easily? Please stop crying, okay?" Feigning embarrassment, I buried my face in Ethan's chest, but couldn't suppress the wide smile spreading across my lips. Finally, this scene had arrived. Forgiveness? Gratitude? Just a disguise. The only high ground a vulnerable victim without power can occupy is the moral high ground. They approached me with malice, wanting to lure me into making a fool of myself, then break my pride and cover me in mud. So I would make them witness my transparent, utterly exposed soul. I wanted everyone to see their malice was met with my flawless sincerity. When the truth was finally revealed, who would be exposed in their ugliness, and who would become the biggest joke? I could hardly wait. 16 nurse's office. I finished my ginger tea and lay down on the bed, feigning sleep. Just as I was about to drift off, I heard 2 sets of footsteps outside the bed curtain. Someone carefully drew the curtain aside. I heard Ethan whisper, "SHH, she's asleep." Julian replied softly. A hand rested gently on my forehead. Finding I didn't have a fever, they both retreated outside the curtain. Feeling awkward about pretending to sleep, I was about to feign waking up when I heard Ethan say quietly, "Julian, that bet, I don't want to continue it. I've already shut down the forum livestream. I'm freezing the prize pool for now. Here's your mini livestream camera back." Julian was silent for a moment. "Fallen for her?" Ethan admitted readily. "Yeah. After the final exams, it's the INU's anniversary dance. I plan to confess to Ivy at the dance." Julian's voice trembled almost imperceptibly. "What if she doesn't accept?" Ethan sounded unconcerned, confident. "Ivy already kissed me. Besides, my looks, my family background, aren't they top tier? I'll treat her really well." Julian interrupted him. "But what if? She already has someone in her heart." Hearing this, Ethan's voice turned ice cold. "Julian, I know you've been digging into Ivy's past. Whatever you found, this ends now. Keep what shouldn't be said buried inside you. In exchange, the Vance family can start preparing for that West Side project." After finishing the last final exam, I walked out of the examination hall. Ethan was waiting for me in the corridor. Seeing me emerge, he hastily shoved a crumpled, heavily revised speech draft into his pocket and came forward with a smile. Before I could speak, he blurted out, "Math, I did all the problems I knew how to do. For the hard ones I didn't know, I wrote solution," and copied the question again. "Definitely passed." Ethan's eyes sparkled. "You said before if I passed math finals, you'd grant me one wish. Does that still count?" Seeing me nod, he laughed heartily. "Then I want you to come back to the villa with me. I finally managed to get my mom's style consultant here today. Lucky you." 17 in the afternoon, Ethan handed me over to the style consultant, but then fled, blushing, saying he wanted to keep the suspense for the evening dance. Makeup, changing clothes. I was fussed over the entire afternoon, then driven by the butler to the entrance of the hall where the dance was being held. Tonight, the first snow happened to be falling. As I stepped out of the car, lifting my skirt, the clock tower bell of the hall chimed 7 p.m., the dance began. Everything felt perfectly timed, as if fated. Ignoring the astonished gazes around me, I ascended the steps towards the hall. At the grand, classical entrance, I saw Julian in a black haute couture suit. Holding a champagne flute, he smiled at me. "You look beautiful tonight," I said. "Thank you." Julian seemed to have had quite a bit to drink. His breath was slightly hitched and his cheeks were flushed. He stared at me and said abruptly, "I'm sorry." I paused, confused. "Why are you apologizing?" Julian whispered. "For everything." I watched Julian intently for a long time until he looked away, flustered. Only then did I let out a soft laugh. I said, "Julian, you have nothing to apologize to me for. That time at the pool, I sent you my location, and you rushed over immediately, didn't you? As for the things you said to me before, I know you were just trying to scare me to get an answer out of me." Julian shook his head sadly. "That answer is meaningless now. Go on in, he has a surprise prepared for you." He stepped aside, allowing me to enter the hall. As I passed him, I secretly pinched my arm hard, making my eyes well up slightly. With tear-filled eyes, I looked down and whispered to Julian, "You asked me if I came to Inu's academy because of him. I want to tell you at least, I used to think so. There isn't much truth in this world, but a girl's tearful eyes speak volumes more than any monologue." After saying this, I pulled away without hesitation. Behind me, someone gasped softly. Did Julian Vance just drop his champagne? 18. As I walked into the hall, the lights slowly dimmed. Amidst surprised gasps from the crowd, the stage lit up. Ethan appeared on stage, dressed in a pure white haute couture suit, a glittering rose brooch pinned to his chest. His hair was slicked back formally, revealing his forehead, highlighting his sharp features and aristocratic air. Ethan took the microphone from its stand, his voice low. Lately, I often dream about someone. Her, when she's studying diligently. Her, when she played the hero saving me. Even her, when she pouts because I annoyed her during tutoring. Everything about her deeply attracts me, makes my heart flutter uncontrollably. The fervent love in his words sent ripples of excitement through the audience. Some were so moved they covered their mouths. At the same time, several spotlights converged on me. Across the crowd, Ethan gazed at me. The meaning of the premium Ecuadorian rose is you wander carelessly through my dreams, turning my heart into a fragrant garden. You've lingered in my dreams for too long. Now, could I ask you to come to my side? Ivy, I like you. Will you be my girlfriend? Simultaneously, rose petals rained down from above, weaving a beautiful, dreamlike illusion. The envious and encouraging gazes of my classmates urged me on, urging me to quickly accept. Under the spotlight, I blinked, opening my mouth nervously. I screeched before I could finish. A harsh electronic screech echoed through the hall. At the same time, the huge screens on all four walls flickered to life, playing a video. First scene, stairwell landing. Ethan watched my retreating back, huffing irritably. This country bumpkin won't agree to tutor. How am I supposed to conquer her? Wait till I mess up her part-time job. Let's see if she still dares refuse me. The screen changed. Second scene. Ethan held a premium Ecuadorian rose, his tone excited and flippant. She gave me a flower. Just wait. I'll win her over in 3 days. The screen changed again. Third scene. Ivy Ashton, if you walk out that door today, don't regret it later. The image shook violently. The person filming was clearly smashing things in anger. Who the hell does she think she is, giving me attitude? Fickle, low-class trash. Once I get her, win the bet, I'll ruin her if it's the last thing I do. My name won't be Shaw if I don't. Rapidly flashing images, malicious words, vile comments. Under everyone's gaze, my face gradually turned pale. On stage, Ethan, after a moment of stunned silence, began to roar furiously. Turn it off for me. But all his anger dissolved instantly upon seeing the tears streaming down my face. 19. Ethan's expression went blank for a second, then he strode towards me. Ivy, it's not what you think. I can explain. I took half a step back. Don't come near me. One movement said it all. At the same time, Julian emerged from the crowd, stepping in front of me. Still holding his champagne flute, impeccably elegant, he said, Ethan, she told you not to come closer. Ethan looked at him, his expression slowly darkening. It was you. These live stream recordings, this is your doing, isn't it? Julian didn't answer, simply repeating, Ethan, she rejected you. This time, Ethan's fist answered him. Amidst gasps from the crowd, Ethan knocked Julian to the ground. All these years as brothers, and you knew how much I like her. Julian lay sprawled on the carpet, but a smile touched his lips. But you also know, if I just mention that one thing. Ethan punched Julian's handsome cheekbone. Shut up. His voice was ice cold, his expression savage. Julian, your family has plenty of illegitimate children. If I break ties with the Vance family, you'll be immediately kicked out of your position as heir. While they were engaged in their dog-eat-dog fight, the videos on the 4 large screens continued to play. The screen changed to display a voting interface. Ethan's excited voice from the past played in the background. Julian, let's set up a live stream prize pool. All donations from the Conquest stream will go into this pool. Everyone can place bets. Let's bet on when that country bumpkin gives her first kiss. Simultaneously, the screen displayed the massive accumulated prize pool, amount 5 million. The names of everyone who participated in the betting flashed across the screen like a grand public shaming. The hall fell utterly silent. You could hear a pin drop. At this point, Julian's smile finally froze. He muttered to himself, "I didn't do this part." The screen displayed the winning bet's timestamp, 19 hours, 23 minutes, 3 seconds. Suppressed whispers spread through the crowd. Someone said incredulously, "This is kind of creepy, the time is exact, down to the second." Whose vote was that? At that moment, the final mystery was unveiled, and the winner's name appeared on the screen, Ivy Ashton. My name. Countless pairs of eyes turned towards me. Standing under the spotlight, I gently wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes and finally revealed a genuine smile. Ethan and Julian looked ashen-faced. They stared at me in disbelief. I smiled and nodded at them. "A bet's a bet. Remember to wire the prize money to my bank account." With that, I lifted my skirt and turned, leaving the hall without a backward glance. 20 dorm room. Curled up in my warm, comfortable bed, I looked at the text message confirming the $5 million deposit. For the first time since my rebirth, I felt a sense of peace. Outside the window, besides the sound of falling snow, there was the faint, elusive fragrance of roses. I knew that downstairs, Ethan was sitting in his convertible, filled to the brim with premium Ecuadorian roses, waiting desperately for me to appear. He had shouted himself hoarse, moving from apologies to repentance, even swearing oaths never to repeat his actions. I found his number, which I had just blocked, and sent him 2 words. Too loud. A few seconds later, the world finally fell silent. At 2 a.m., the snow fell heavier. Unable to sleep, I decided to study ahead, but suddenly saw a brilliant firework explode outside my window. Ethan had stopped shouting and was now stubbornly, incessantly, setting off fireworks, one after another. I drew the curtains, put in earplugs, turned off the light, and went to sleep. I don't know how long I slept, but I was suddenly awakened by frantic knocking on my door. Taking out my earplugs, I immediately heard the commotion downstairs. Someone collapsed. "Ambulance, call an ambulance, quickly." Hospital private room. Julian and I sat together by Ethan's bedside. Looking at the unconscious Ethan on the bed, Julian suddenly spoke. "Ivy, I've thought about this for a long time. Even if I lose my status as the Vance family heir, I still want to tell you." I cut off his confession ruthlessly. "You two are really strange." Looking at the handsome young man, I voiced the question that had puzzled me all along. "You haven't even learned the basics of respect, so why can you stand in front of me so self-righteously and pretend to be so deeply in love with me?" The color drained instantly from Julian's face. The air grew heavy with silence. Just as I was about to get up for a glass of water, my sleeve was suddenly tugged. I turned to see Ethan on the bed. Though his eyes were still closed, his eyelids were slightly red. He was awake. Ethan stubbornly held onto my sleeve, whispering, "Please don't go, okay?" I pulled his hand away, tucked it back under the covers, and said flatly, "Trying to win someone's forgiveness by hurting yourself is really stupid." At that moment, the room door opened from the outside. The butler entered, followed by a well-dressed, middle-aged couple, Ethan's parents. Mr. Shaw looked at the pathetic state of his son on the bed, practically trembling with anger. "You disgraceful child, look at this worthless state you're in. Are you trying to scare your mother and me to death?" Mrs. Shaw managed to compose her anxious expression somewhat. She gently stroked Ethan's hair, then turned to me. "You must be Ivy, right? Would you be willing to talk with Auntie for a moment?" Seeing me nod, Ethan struggled to sit up in bed. His eyes red-rimmed, he grabbed his mother's hand, trembling. "Mom, please help me convince her, okay? I've never liked a girl this much before." "Mom, please." 21 Hospital VIP Lounge. Mrs. Shaw gracefully handed me a cup of tea. She said, "Ivy, my husband and I know everything now. The livestream incident, that was Ethan and his friends being utterly ridiculous. Your reputation has been damaged. The Shaw family will take responsibility." As compensation, Mrs. Shaw offered me 2 choices. Sipping her tea, she looked at me gently. "Many say true devotion is only found among the very wealthy. While that statement might be biased, there's some truth to it. Ethan has been sheltered his whole life. He might be unruly, but he's not inherently bad." Mrs. Shaw observed my expression, choosing her words carefully. The first option, the Shaw family sends both of you abroad to study. You don't need to worry about the costs. After graduation, if you both still wish, you can get married. I had to admit Mrs. Shaw was clever. Given Ethan's personality, forcibly separating us would only make him more stubborn due to defiance. So, she wanted me to stay by Ethan's side, playing the long game. To achieve this, she even offered what she considered an extremely tempting condition, marrying into a wealthy family, transcending my social class. I was deeply moved, then quickly asked, "And the second option?" Mrs. Shaw paused. "You don't like Ethan?" Hearing the question, I lowered my gaze. After a long silence, I finally answered softly, "Maybe, but I will never be with someone who deceived me." Mrs. Shaw was silent for a moment, then patted my head like a gentle elder. "Ivy, you're very smart. Listen to Auntie's advice, stay by Ethan's side. Even if you leave now, this hunt won't end. Once a young man who doesn't understand love or hate becomes obsessed, he will chase you relentlessly for the rest of his life." Her gaze was profound. We can't control our children forever. Years down the line, when they've come into their own power, gained full authority. When they find you then, are you sure you'll be able to handle the backlash? I put down the cup of now cold tea and looked calmly at Mrs. Shaw. "Auntie, you forgot one thing. Years down the line, when they find me, I won't be the person I am now either. I will become stronger, stronger than all of them." Ultimately, Mrs. Shaw agreed to cover the breach of contract fees for my transfer and used her connections to secretly send me and my family to a small city down south. Before I left, she zipped up my coat for me. "Good child, Auntie promises you until your 20th birthday, no one will find you." Snow was still falling when I left the hospital. Without lingering on the warmth behind me, I calmly walked into the howling wind and snow of the night. Only the wind and swirling snow existed between heaven and earth, blanketing my head. I don't know how long I walked, only that the wind and snow gradually subsided. Looking up again, I saw the sunrise in the east, radiant and dazzling. End of the first story. Subscribe to my channel if you like my stories. Don't miss the second exciting story. Story 2. Before the college entrance exams, I secretly took the love letter Isabel Thorne, the school beauty, had written to my childhood friend, Julian Grant, preventing them from getting together. He hated me for the rest of his life. Especially after discovering I had feelings for him, he called me jealous by nature and malicious and scheming, swearing he would never like me. Later, we both died in a car crash. Before dying, he pleaded that if we could do it over, I wouldn't ruin his and Isabel's chance at happiness. As he wished. Given a second chance, I didn't take the letter. And then, so he could attend the same university as Isabel, he deliberately threw the science multiple choice section of the exams. One after the college entrance exam results were released, Julian Grant and Isabel Thorne started dating. At the graduation party, his romantic gesture of sacrificing his science score for love spread like wildfire, earning him the title Pure Love Warrior. I sat in a dim corner, nursing a glass of juice, watching the two of them surrounded by the crowd, and took a small sip. Beside me, my best friend, Sophia Miller, was utterly shocked, though she couldn't understand it. Is he crazy, throwing away his future like that? All for some uncertain future with Isabel Thorne. Yes, this time, faced with the choice between his future and Isabel, he chose Isabel. Last time, when I secretly took the letter before the exams to secure his future, all I received was a lifetime of his hatred. He even told me with utter disgust, after finding out about my crush, "Ethan Ashworth, I have no interest in someone jealous by nature, malicious, and scheming. Your feelings make me sick." In truth, I hadn't kept the letter hidden. I returned it to him the night after the exams ended. But when he took the letter to Isabel, she rejected him. "Julian, our scores are so different, we won't end up at the same university. How could we be together? Long distance for 4 years. I need a boyfriend who can be by my side whenever I need him. Can you do that?" A crestfallen Julian returned and shot me a cold look. The next day, his parents frantically sought me out, saying Julian planned to change his chosen university, begging me to talk him out of it. I wasn't entirely surprised, but before I could even speak when I found Julian, his eyes landed on me and he sneered. "What? Stealing the letter once wasn't enough, Ethan. Are you going to ruin things again?" Standing in the windy stairwell, the sunny day felt strangely cold. I looked down at the dejected, agitated boy before me and said only one thing. "Julian, it took 12 years of hard work to get you here." Ultimately, under the threat of his parents harming themselves, Julian abandoned the idea of changing his application. He didn't get together with Isabel either. From then on, I became the villain who stopped him and Isabel from being together, the target of his resentment whenever his what-ifs surfaced. Until the very last moment of his life, he still blamed me. In the blood-scented wreck of the car, his voice raspy, he begged, "If we could do it over, Ethan, please don't interfere and ruin our fate with your misplaced good intentions." So, reborn, I granted his wish. I didn't take the letter before the exams. Julian saw the letter, saw that Isabel liked him too but was hesitant because of their academic gap, explaining her delayed response. And then he burned his bridges completely, leaving no room for retreat. He deliberately threw the science multiple-choice section, scoring over 100 points lower than in the previous life. He successfully narrowed the gap with Isabel and ended up with her. As the party wore on, someone suddenly mentioned me, their tone nostalgic. I used to think Ethan would be the one to end up with Julian. After all, they grew up together and were always equals. But Julian quickly refuted it, likely worried Isabel might misunderstand. He spoke with deliberate distance, just ordinary friends who grew up together. I smiled silently, repeating those words to myself, ordinary friends. But Julian was right. We had known each other since childhood. From starting school until high school graduation, we were always in the same class. Besides my parents, Julian was probably the person I spent the most time with. I'd seen him pull all-nighters to solve a single problem, and he'd seen me drag myself to an exam with a 104-degree fever. No one knew better than us how much effort went into consistently placing in the top 3, which everyone else thought was effortless. The day we entered high school ranked first and second in the city, Julian pointed to the top 2 photos on the honor roll bulletin board from previous years and asked me, "In 3 years that'll be us, Ethan. Are you confident?" Behind the young man was a fiery summer sunset, intense and vibrant. The air buzzed with the screeching of cicadas, restless and alive. I hugged my books and tilted my head to look at him. "Julian, you have my word." Back then, all we saw in each other's eyes was anticipation for the future, a yearning for our dreams, and unwavering determination. But soon, Isabel Thorne appeared in Julian's eyes. During that high school period when most students were disheveled, fighting for their dreams, only Isabel was extraordinarily beautiful. At the cultural festival shortly after school started, Isabel stood center stage in a white dress, like the moon descending, casting a hazy glow that blurred everything around her. She alone captured the attention of everyone there. After that night, Isabel's name spread through every class, becoming the idealized crush for countless boys, including Julian. The first time I sensed something was wrong was after he returned from delivering papers to the class next door for the math teacher. He sat down, ears slightly red, the paper in front of him barely touched after 4 evening study sessions, only one problem solved. On the scratch paper densely covered in calculation formulas, 3 out-of-place words appeared: Isabel Thorne. Though he had heavily crossed them out with his pen, the marks were still visible. Later, I heard that Isabel had teased him when he delivered the papers. While fooling around with friends, she had accidentally bumped into Julian, hugging him. Julian, momentarily stunned, just managed a strained, "Be careful." Isabel simply smiled at him. "Sorry about that, top student." "Oh, and hey, you're really handsome," a chorus of teasing erupted around them. Julian, always composed, introverted, and reserved, lost his composure. Julian and I were similar in some ways: rational, level-headed, calm like lukewarm water. Isabel was emotional, passionate, like an effervescent tablet dropped into that water. A beautiful, effervescent tablet at that. So, I wasn't surprised at all that Julian was drawn to her. Just like in many idol dramas and novels, the main couple often has contrasting personalities, promoting the idea that opposites attract. Countless examples: the CEO and Cinderella, the top student and the slacker, or the aloof beauty and the warm sunshine. At the time, I assumed that no matter how smitten Julian was, he would still understand what was truly important. But the ever-calm, composed, and sensible Julian rebelled for Isabel just once. 3. I wasn't actually sure how he and Isabel became close. Buried under the heavy load of schoolwork, I barely had time for myself, let alone them. Most of my conversations with him revolved around problem-solving methods, answers to questions, or whether he was ready for the next exam. By the time I realized he and Isabel were growing closer, she was already casually calling him bookworm and top student, and Julian's reactions showed he was used to it. I started noticing Julian disappearing for half an hour every lunch break he was tutoring Isabel. Every Saturday morning, he'd suddenly have plans attending small gatherings organized by Isabel. I knew Julian was falling for her, but that couldn't stop me from focusing on my own studies or divert my attention to their developing relationship. I kept my head down and worked hard until the national physics competition in our second year. The school held several selection rounds to choose one student to participate. Julian didn't show up for the final round, the one that would select 1 out of 5, because Isabel had fainted from a fever. After taking her to the hospital, at her request, Julian chose to stay and keep her company the entire afternoon. I don't know how to describe my feelings then. I just remember running to the hospital, finding him, and all my emotions boiling down to a single, confused utterance. "Julian!" He leaned against the hospital corridor wall, his expression indifferent, and simply said, "I've followed the rules my whole life, Ethan. I get to rebel once, don't I?" So he abandoned all the hard preparation, forgetting the countless nights he'd pushed through illness to study. Looking at the refined, scholarly boy before me, I felt a momentary sense of strangeness, even an unexpected sting of tears. But I said nothing. I knew, however, that Julian's behavior wasn't a good sign. So when he faced his next major choice, I made it for him preemptively. I took the love letter Isabel gave him just before the college entrance exams. Before that, I had actually prepared myself for the likelihood that Julian would confess to her after the exams and they would get together. I was even ready to offer my congratulations, but I didn't expect to witness Isabel placing the letter on his desk when I returned to the classroom to grab my notebook during a meeting for the top 100 students. In the empty classroom, she stood by Julian's desk, talking to a friend. The gist of their conversation was, she initially approached Julian as part of a bet with friends to win over the top-ranked student, Julian Grant. But in the process, she genuinely fell for him. Still, she felt the gap between them was too wide for them to attend the same university and didn't want a long-distance relationship. That's why, despite knowing Julian liked her, she kept insisting they were just classmates. The letter was her way of expressing her hope they could go to the same university and her desire to be with him. Previously, I could confidently say Julian wouldn't sacrifice his future for anyone or anything. But in that moment, I wasn't so sure. To prevent that 1% chance after they left, I went in and took the letter. Countless times afterward, facing Julian's scorn, I would repeatedly question if I had done the wrong thing. Once, I tried to talk to him calmly. "Julian, even if you had seen it back then, what difference would it have made? Would you really have?" He cut me off with a sneer, utterly convinced. "Ethan, I would have." I looked at him silently for a moment, then let out a soft laugh. For the first time, I realized I had indeed made a mistake. A terrible mistake. For, as the party neared its end, Isabel, arm linked with Julian's, walked up to me, raising her glass with a beaming smile. "Ethan, you've known Julian for 18 years. Even as ordinary friends, your relationship is different from others. So, You'll wish us well too, right? I glanced at the young man beside her in the black t-shirt, his features relaxed, and politely corrected her with a smile. I didn't accompany Julian for 18 years. We just happened to walk the same path for 18 years. From now on, our paths diverge. Plenty of people have wished you happiness and fulfillment today. You don't need one more from me. I wish you a bright future. I meant it sincerely. After all, coming from ordinary families, who among us hadn't fought tooth and nail through years of study for a better future? In the previous life, after Julian entered a top university, he became the star student of the most prestigious professor in the physics department. He met respected mentors and countless like-minded friends. With access to the country's best resources, he forged ahead passionately in his beloved field of physics research. The name Julian Grant repeatedly appeared in academic journals, and his articulate presence graced research conferences. His future was luminous. His only regret, perhaps, was his past idealized love, Isabel Thorne. She remained his lifelong obsession. At the few class reunions, talk of her usually involved who she was dating, who she'd broken up with, or which rich heir was showering her with money and grand gestures. The last news I heard about her was during the spring festival. She was getting married. That night, Julian got blind drunk with friends and ended up knocking on my door. My parents happened to be out. As soon as I opened the door, he stormed in, full of hostility, taunting me. "Ethan, you must be thrilled now, right? She's getting married. Are you satisfied now?" I stood quietly by the sofa, letting him vent, then poured him a glass of warm water. "Have some water." He didn't take it. Honestly, after all those years, I was tired too. Watching him gradually fall asleep after his outburst, I casually draped a blanket over him. Back in my room, I received a gossip update from Sophia, sourced through her intricate network of friends. Apparently, Isabel's fiancé is some nouveau rich guy who fell for her at first sight at a friend's birthday party. She actually had a boyfriend at the time he started pursuing her. Initially, she said no, but then the nouveau rich guy started showering her with money until she was willing to break up with the other guy. I read it silently, head bowed, suddenly wondering what the outcome would have been if Julian had given up his future for Isabel back then. I thought I'd never know the path of the other choice, but then I unexpectedly returned to the past, and everything restarted. Julian finally got his wish. Watching the couple, now back in the center of the crowd, being playfully urged to kiss, I finished my juice and turned to leave. In the countless hypothetical scenarios Julian used to imagine, he always believed that even if he went to the same, lesser university as Isabel, he could still reach the same heights through his own ability. In reality, no one could know the definitive answer, but, Julian, I'm waiting to see. 5 this time around, apart from Julian's choice, nothing else changed. I still achieved the same score and was admitted to the same university as in my previous life, accepted into my preferred mathematics department. During the entire summer break before leaving for university, Julian and I didn't see each other again. He was away on a graduation trip with Isabel. I took a part-time job tutoring middle school students. Occasionally bumping into Julian's parents, I couldn't miss the bitter smiles accompanying their greetings or the few silver hairs amidst the black. I suppose they would never know why Julian, who had never ranked below the top 3, who was so hardworking and talented, had suddenly performed so poorly on the exams. They were probably worried he was devastated, trying everything to console him, putting on brave faces, encouraging him to travel and relax. For a moment, I didn't know which would be worse for them, knowing the truth or never finding out. But seeing them, a wave of sourness welled up inside me. After all, apart from my own parents, they were the adults I'd interacted with most, the ones who had watched me grow up. For a long time, due to my parents' work schedules, I ate lunch at Julian's house. His mother, Helen, always made my favorite sweet and sour ribs, knowing all my preferences. She would even specifically tell Julian to look after me at school, ensuring no other classmates bullied me. Back then, Julian, holding a slice of watermelon, would respond with mature composure. "Don't worry, I won't let her get bullied." Being a girl, quiet, and good at academics, I generally got along well with classmates. Julian, however, often felt isolated because his serious nature contrasted with the rebellious phase of other boys his age. But he didn't care, because he had me. I always thought we would continue walking the same path, never imagining he would turn away midway. The next time I saw Julian was at the high-speed train station on the day we left for university. In the previous life, we were heading to the same city. Now, I was going north, while he and Isabel were heading south. In the bustling waiting room, he sat with Isabel. As I walked past them, I saw him watching online videos with some relationship guru, analyzing the 10 signs a boyfriend loves his girlfriend. He occasionally nodded in agreement with her comments. Probably from spending 2 months outdoors, his usually pale complexion had tanned considerably. His features seemed more defined. He had a tattoo of what looked like IT initials on his arm and wore matching outfits with her. This version of him was steadily diverging from the Julian stored in my memory. Later, he noticed my gaze and looked up. Across the row of seats, I met his eyes directly, offering a small smile as a greeting. He froze for a second, instinctively pulling his tattooed arm back slightly. When Isabel turned to ask him something, he quickly averted his gaze, murmuring something to her. Based on his lip movements, I guessed it was. Wasn't looking at anything. Just then, my train was called. As I queued for ticket inspection and boarded, I felt an intense gaze fixed on my back. I knew who it was, but I didn't turn around. After finding my seat on the train, I received a message from Julian. Glancing at our chat history, dormant for months, I felt a moment of dissociation. This frequency, or lack thereof, would likely become the norm, until one day, some ordinary exchange would become our last conversation ever. Snapping back to the present, I read his new message. It was short. "Ethan, I wish you a bright future too." Of course, I would have a bright future. I would step onto a new platform, see a larger world. Surrounded by top talents from across the country, I'd enter a completely different circle than before. Here, hardworking and talented people were countless. Humble yet capable individuals were everywhere. Freed from the limited perspective of a single high school, I would even realize that Isabel wasn't as extraordinarily beautiful as she had seemed. That was just a filter cast upon her by numerous dream chasers who had dimmed their own light. Now, shedding the uniform mold, venturing into their specialized fields, everyone was a pearl. After that, I became busy with my major courses, discussing projects with professors and classmates, and participating in various competitions. I also volunteered as a teacher, learned painting, and ended up drawing portraits of every cat and dog on campus, giving each one a name. Whenever I returned home for holidays, I always seemed to miss Julian by chance. During the spring festival, I'd go back to my hometown. So, for 4 whole years, we never once crossed paths. We met again at the class reunion 4 years later. 4 years can change a lot. The once fresh-faced, naive teenagers had matured into composed young adults, discussing future plans, sharing competition experiences, and comparing job offers. Each bore the prestige of a good university, armed with numerous awards. Though not yet fully in the workforce, their futures looked promising. Due to traffic, I arrived last. As soon as I entered, I was warmly pulled into the center of the crowd. Shared experiences allowed me to quickly blend into the conversation. As I confidently shared highlights of my past 4 years, someone pointed at me, feigning annoyance. "You guys don't know this, but back in sophomore year, several universities held a joint debate competition, and Ethan and I ended up on opposing teams. Let me tell you, her flawless logical loop pinned us down. Absolutely zero camaraderie felt from our old classmate days. I smiled at him. "You flatter me." He wouldn't let it go, continuing to tease. "Didn't see that coming, Ethan. You were always so quiet and gentle." On the debate stage, though, utterly rational, relentless, not giving an inch. "I'm curious, are you like that when you argue with your boyfriend?" His questions sparked laughter. Then someone, as if suddenly remembering, turned to Julian and asked, "Hey, where's Isabel Thorne?" Our pure love warrior, didn't the school beauty come with you? Only then did I notice Julian, sitting silently in a corner of the private room. Like everyone else, he had changed significantly. The humility and confidence that once shone in his eyes had vanished completely. How to put it? Although still quiet and introverted, sitting there now, he seemed somewhat out of place. Like an overlooked outsider. The boys who once enviously called him the pure love warrior had grown into young men exposed to better resources and broader horizons. Revisiting that topic now seemed to carry a subtle, awkward weight, their words tinged with faint mockery and a "look what happened" undertone. After all, he used to be the undisputed powerhouse among them. Now, he didn't even have common ground for discussion. Sophia raised her glass behind me and sighed softly. Well, reality is reality, unlike those idle dramas. In idle dramas, a 4-year time skip might reveal the male lead's triumphant return after overcoming adversity. But reality was, the Julian present wasn't more handsome, nor more successful. He had already fallen behind everyone else in the room. Because personal success isn't solely the result of one's own efforts. Platform, resources, connections, talent, opportunity, environment, each is indispensable. So, the Julian Grant who was renowned in the physics world in the previous life was now virtually unknown in this one. I wasn't surprised, and Julian, suddenly addressed, paused for a few seconds before looking towards me. His Adam's apple bobbed as he stated in a flat tone, "We broke up. A few days after the reunion, my best friend Sophia came over to share the gossip she'd gathered about Julian and Isabel. Apparently, shortly after starting university, under Isabel's influence, Julian not only mastered photography, photo editing, and lipstick selection, but even got into a fight with another guy over her. I recalled seeing Julian's social media feed during that time. Posts featuring photos or videos of Isabel appeared every few days. A stark contrast to his previous occasional shares of physics-related news. Back then, my thought was, true love really can change a person. However, once the honeymoon phase ended and routine set in, Julian got busy with his major courses. Isabel met more people through various activities, and disagreements began to surface. Isabel complained Julian didn't have time for her because of competitions, frequently demanding he drop his preparations to go out with her. Julian, on the other hand, couldn't understand Isabel's need for the first milk tea of autumn, failing to grasp the ceremonial significance of that specific cup when milk tea was available daily. Minor disagreements, though not severe, piled up, eventually leading to a cold war between them. Sophia grew more agitated as she spoke, her tone laced with cynicism and indignation. How much of that past, true love was genuine, really? When the novelty fades, conflicts only multiply, especially since they both met more outstanding people, and their relationship carried the weight of one party's very real sacrifice. That's a hidden time bomb just waiting for a fuse. So, when Isabel was pursued by a rich and handsome heir, Mr. Kensington, her dissatisfaction with Julian intensified. After all, his main appeal had been his #1 ranking, but in the larger world of university, grades weren't the sole measure of worth. Facing the fading affection and Isabel's subtle disdain, Julian finally couldn't resist bringing up the college entrance exam sacrifice he made for her. All he got was Isabel's mocking reply, "For me, Julian, wasn't that your choice? Don't blame me for the outcome just because you're unhappy with it now." With those words, the facade was completely shattered. They broke up soon after, and Isabel seamlessly moved on with the rich heir. And so, the legendary love story, tagged with school beauty, top student, and sacrifice score, came to an end. I casually flipped through a magazine, responding lazily to Sophia's passionate monologue. "Oh, is that so?" She fell silent for a few seconds, then let out a barely audible sigh. Honestly, as someone who was his classmate for 6 years, I'm really disappointed in him and feel sorry for him too. Couldn't he have at least finished the exam properly and then made his choice when filling out university applications based on his score? Why burn bridges so completely? I really want to know if he regrets his choice now. That love, worth sacrificing his score for, apparently only lasted 4 years. I smiled calmly and replied, that was his own choice. Whether he regrets it or not, no one else will bear the consequences for him anymore. 8. However, under his relentless resentment and disgust in the past life, I truly did come to regret my actions. Back then, due to studies and work, we lived in the same city and moved in the same academic circles, leading to unavoidable interactions, some deep, some shallow. At home, because of our parents, we maintained a surface-level harmony, preserving a degree of civility. But almost every encounter involved his cold remarks and sarcasm. Thinking back, his hatred probably peaked when he discovered my crush on him. I'd kept a diary since I was young, and since Julian was the person I spent the most time with, he featured heavily in it. I wrote about hiking together, him carrying me home when I sprained my ankle, him standing detention with me when I overslept and was late, him giving me his book when I forgot mine. We went to the library together on weekends, represented the school in competitions together, consoled each other when exam rankings slipped, and argued endlessly over problem-solving methods. Everything between Julian and me was mundane, ordinary stuff, no major emotional upheavals. So initially, I didn't even realize I liked him. It wasn't until that day he pointed at the honor roll photos and asked if I was confident that I belatedly realized the words filling every page of my diary betrayed my feelings for him. I liked his dedication to achieving his dreams, the spark in his eyes when facing difficult problems, and the way he'd look at me intently whenever I felt discouraged and wanted to give up, asking, "So, are you going to stop here, Ethan?" That night, for the first time, I wrote in my diary, I like Julian Grant. But then Isabel appeared, growing closer to Julian. Since I had little contact with her, our only connection being Julian, I only mentioned her once in my diary, writing a single sentence. Julian has fallen for Isabel Thorne. After the love letter incident, the relationship between Julian and me became increasingly strained. Every argument eroded my feelings, just as the initial crush had faded without a clear end point, having started just as subtly. I thought my crush would remain a secret forever. I never expected him to see my diary while helping my dad install a new bookshelf. To this day, I can clearly remember the mocking look in his eyes as he held up the diary and looked at me. His tone was icy as he asked, "You like me, is that it?" I stared at the diary in his hand, silent for a moment, then admitted frankly, "Yes, I used to." Perhaps my overly calm demeanor provoked him. He suddenly threw the diary hard at me, demanding angrily, "So that's why you took the letter?" The hardcover grazed my cheek. It hurt. In that exact moment, I suddenly realized I didn't actually like him anymore. Facing the casually discarded chronicle of my past feelings, I felt no sadness at all. I simply picked up the diary from the floor, wiped it clean, and apologized sincerely. "I'm sorry, Julian. I shouldn't have taken that letter. I shouldn't have interfered with your destiny. And I shouldn't have presumed to like you." He remained unsatisfied, scoffing before turning and leaving, dropping those words that remain etched in my memory. Jealous by nature, malicious and scheming. Honestly, although I liked him back then, I valued our shared journey as friends far more than that shallow crush. So, my intention in taking the letter was never to stop him and Isabel from getting together. I just hoped he could achieve the results commensurate with his 12 years of effort, without external influence. Therefore, I merely delayed the choice he faced by a few days. I was never jealous of Isabel. I always understood that feelings can't be forced. If he had ended up with Isabel, I would have offered my congratulations, and then continued forging my own path. My world didn't revolve around Julian. 9 now, it felt like the erroneous trajectory of the past life had been corrected, setting me back on the path I was meant to follow. Although this time around, I didn't take the letter, I also didn't deliberately distance myself from this life's Julian, at least not before the college entrance exams. Everything proceeded as it had before. But after living in different circles for 4 years, our encounter at the reunion, ended without us exchanging a single word beyond the initial breakup announcement. This gradual drifting apart didn't affect me, so I made no effort to bridge the gap. Until his mother, Helen Grant, was hospitalized. My mom took me along to visit. After putting down the fruit basket, I sat in the antiseptic smelling room, listening to my mom and Mrs. Grant chat about everyday matters. I stepped outside to take a call. On my way back, I encountered Julian near the flower beds. He wore a black jacket, his brow furrowed with an inescapable weariness and frustration. A half-smoked cigarette rested between his fingers. The familiar expression startled me for a second. In the past life, he looked exactly like this when facing research obstacles or during his futile attempts to win Isabel back. Back then, despite his outward success, he still poured unseen effort into his work. The academic path was ultimately arduous and lonely. As for winning Isabel back, Julian did try to reconnect with her after achieving some success, and they did re-establish contact. However, by then, Julian's entire network connections, resources, social circle was based in his university city, and he spent most of his time in the lab. Compared to the wealthy, leisured heirs also pursuing Isabel, he didn't have much of an advantage. Ultimately, after 6 months of showing goodwill, Isabel rejected him again, making a perfect exit from his life. From then on, the moon hung high in the sky, forever unattainable. And the blame for taking the letter and preventing them from being together stuck with me for life. Because in his mind, if he had been at the same university with Isabel from the start, staying together, the outcome would surely have been different. Now, looking at him sitting there, I didn't know why he wore that expression again. The moment our eyes met, he stubbed out his cigarette. He stood up and walked towards me, his expression neutral. His voice, raspy from smoking, sounded dry. "We didn't get a chance to talk properly last time. Ethan, you've changed a lot. You look great, you're doing so well." He paused, then added with apparent remorse, "I was immature back then. Worried she'd misunderstand, scared it would affect our relationship. Calling our connection ordinary friends wasn't right." I waited quietly for him to finish, then offered a calm smile, responding generously. "It's okay, Julian. We are just ordinary friends. What else would we be?" His expression stiffened slightly, then fell. He gazed towards the fading sunset and laughed self-deprecatingly, a sense of loss in his voice. "Actually, I've thought countless times since then, what if I hadn't seen that letter?" Following his train of thought, I replied lightly, "That wouldn't have happened. The letter was placed there. It was impossible for you not to see it." He suddenly turned his head to look at me. "But what if someone had taken it?" I paused, momentarily thrown. Before I could speak, he asked again, "Ethan, if you had seen it beforehand, would you have taken it?" I studied his face, trying to discern something, but found nothing. So I calmly shook my head. "No, I wouldn't have." We broke eye contact in the ensuing silence. He suddenly smiled, as if finally relieved, repeating thankfully several times, "That's good, that's good." Then he added, "After we broke up, I kept having the same dream over and over. I dreamed that back before the exams, you took the letter, and ultimately I didn't get together with her. And I hated you for my entire life. In the end, we died in a car crash that I caused. The warmth of the blood felt so real, like it actually happened." I murmured intending to head back to the hospital room, and said gently, "It was all just a dream. Don't worry about it." But I knew it was real. The car crash happened on the day of Isabel's wedding. Before that, our high school alma mater invited us back for an alumni event. Our former homeroom teacher asked us to film a growth-themed video together titled, "Always Moving Forward" for the current students. And so, I ended up in Julian's car, choosing a route for filming. Later, following the pre-prepared script, I sat in the passenger seat, adjusting the equipment while discussing camera angles with Julian. It was a rare moment of peaceful interaction, the first since the college exams. The filming went smoothly. On the way back, I leaned quietly against the window, no longer talking, just watching the scenery blur past. Then Julian's phone suddenly rang. He instinctively answered it on speakerphone. The next second, Isabel's bright voice filled the car. "Julian, it's my wedding today. I forgot to send you an invitation. We've known each other for so many years, we're friends. I'll text you the time and place later." As the call ended, silence fell in the car. I was carefully considering saying I'd get out there and grab a taxi home when he abruptly turned the car around. I knew he was still going, but unfortunately, he never made it. Because the next second, we were hit by a truck. The feeling of my internal organs shifting was incredibly painful. But after the pain numbed, my overwhelming sensation was one of release. Before losing consciousness, I heard Julian weakly call out, "Kyan, Kyan," a few times, followed by that plea if we could do it again, begging me not to ruin his and Isabel's fate. When I opened my eyes again, I was back shortly after starting high school. I didn't know what Julian's "that's good" and his recurring dream meant, but it didn't matter anymore. My second encounter with Julian was on the day his mother was discharged from the hospital. I went to deliver some soup my mom had made. I chatted with Mrs. Grant for a while, listening to her reminisce. She pulled out old physical photos, picking up one of Julian and me after winning a middle school competition, saying, "Time flies, doesn't it? To think your mom and I were in the same hospital room when we were due. You were born just a day after Julian, and in the blink of an eye, it's been over 20 years. Kyan, Kyan, dear, you're still as pretty as you were when you were little. Julian's dad absolutely adored you back then. He'd hold you, and you wouldn't cry or fuss, just sit there quietly smiling. Later, when you were a bit older, you and Julian were stuck together constantly. We adults used to joke that you two would definitely end up together." I smiled politely, echoing her sentiment. "Mrs. Grant, that was just kid stuff, nothing serious." She patted my hand and sighed. "It's Julian who wasn't fortunate enough. The gap between you two has grown so much now. He really can't match up to you anymore." I gave a small smile, intending to gently refute the idea. "Mrs. Grant, it's not about matching up. What's important is whether two people are walking the same path." She likely misinterpreted my meaning, replying, "I heard from Julian he's preparing for the postgraduate entrance exams. The university he's aiming for is the one he originally targeted during the college exams, the one in the same city where you studied." "Maybe then." I gently interrupted her, "Mrs. Grant, I'm going abroad to study. Also, I already have a boyfriend. I just haven't had the chance to tell my parents yet." Just then, Julian returned from outside and went to the kitchen sink to wash his hands. We were sitting on the living room sofa. I didn't know if he heard, but he stood there with his back to me, perfectly still. He didn't move for a long time. After a few seconds of silence, Mrs. Grant, perhaps trying to ease the atmosphere, asked about my boyfriend. I smiled and recounted how we met. He was a guy I met at a competition, gentle, clear-headed, humble, and self-disciplined. He was in an integrated bachelor's, master's, PhD program, won national scholarships every year, excelled in various competitions, and knew calligraphy, chess, and even played the drums. Then I opened my phone and found a photo of him giving a speech at an academic forum. After showing her, I said, "He's someone I like very much, and he's my fellow traveler." The topic ended there. Later, on the way home, I inexplicably recalled Julian standing at the sink, sleeves rolled up. There were faint marks on his forearm, from a removed tattoo. In an instant, it felt like time warped. The name once heavily crossed out on scratch paper, but still visible, the signal of his beginning with Isabel. Now, the faint marks on his arm, the symbol of their end. That sudden burst of youthful hormones had finally receded like the tide. 11. The entanglement between Julian and me pretty much concluded there. I admit, I was once curious about the fate awaiting him after choosing the other path. I wanted to know how, in today's fiercely competitive environment where every path upward is crowded, he would reach the heights he achieved in the previous life. Even more, I wondered how the family that had invested countless efforts nurturing him for over a decade would support his renewed pursuit of that dream. I must confess, I hoped to see him struggle on that path, perhaps to validate my actions in the past life. But I also knew I had indeed been wrong. There's a saying, perhaps paraphrased from Dickens, that captures it. The best form of politeness is not to meddle. Once you meddle, you bear responsibility. So this time, I maintained my proper place, refraining from interfering in any of Julian's choices. In the past life, he regretted not being with Isabel. I didn't know if, in this life, he would regret sacrificing those 21 multiple-choice questions. But the curious thing about fate is that there's never an optimal choice. Whichever path you take, there will be regrets. What matters is bearing the consequences of your choice. And now, I had no interest whatsoever in the direction of Julian's fate in this life. Life is long, after all. From here on, whether he stages a comeback against the odds, returning to his peak, or simply stops here and fades into obscurity, it no longer concerned me. I stopped looking back and continued moving forward. During my 3 years studying abroad, my boyfriend and I were in a long-distance relationship. Sophia called once, teasing me with a laugh. Kayan, you're gone for 3 years. Aren't you worried things will fade with your boyfriend?" While rushing to meet a deadline, I replied calmly, "We might not be in the same place, but we're heading towards the same goal. Our souls will only grow closer." She made a suggestive tusk sound, then, as if remembering something, changed the subject. "Remember Isabel Thorne? She was pursued by that nouveau rich guy who fell for her at first sight and threw money at her. Her wedding was incredibly grand, invited a huge crowd of former classmates, received countless envious looks. Unfortunately, less than 2 years later, the nouveau rich husband grew tired of her and found someone younger and prettier, pursuing the new girl with the same lavish spending. Isabel, upon discovering the affair, caused a huge scene, only to be met with his demand for a divorce. She refused, and now they were stuck in a protracted battle over the separation. I listened distractedly, suddenly realizing Isabel's face had become blurry in my mind. Besides remembering she was quite pretty, I couldn't recall any other distinct memories. Even when she was dating Julian back then, she held no special significance in my eyes. I never considered her a rival. We were always worlds apart. Perhaps sensing my lack of interest, Sophia dropped the topic and added, "Julian took the postgraduate entrance exam twice, and both times he missed the cutoff by just 0.1 points. Talk about bad luck. Finally finished with my deadline, I let out a long breath and replied nonchalantly, "Oh, well, I wish him luck." Not long after that, one day, I received a notification for a retracted message. It was from Julian, but I didn't ask about it. It wasn't until I returned home from abroad and my old friends threw me a welcome party that Julian, who was also there, asked if I had seen that message. I shook my head, saying it was the middle of the night for me. I was asleep. He gave a wry smile and explained, "I had a fragmented dream, mistook it for reality. Glad I didn't disturb you." Maintaining a friendly smile, I realized I'd told a rather clumsy lie. His middle-of-the-night dream occurred during my daytime, but it didn't matter anymore. Just like the retracted question, presumably, "Ethan, did you used to like me?" The answer was irrelevant now. What mattered was that I was now on my own path, moving further and further ahead, and my partner was waiting just up the road. Watching Julian's retreating figure after he gave me one last deep look, thin and solitary, my boyfriend approached with a small cake and quietly asked who that was. Pulling my gaze away, I linked my arm through his and smiled dismissively. "Just an ordinary friend I grew up with." End.